Hello and welcome to the definitive Mithrix freezing installing guide for Risk of Rain 2. In this guide, I'll cover how you can prevent or temporarily delay Mithrix's jumps in phases 1 and 3. By using these techs, you can prevent Mithrix's pizza attack, take advantage of more damage sources, and overall gain a better control over the fight. Along with demonstrations of every freezing installing tech in the game, I'll explain why these techs cause Mithrix's jumps to be skipped or stalled. So let's get started. First, a bit of background. You know how survivors have a primary, secondary, utility, and special skill? As it turns out, enemy skills are coded in the same way, including Mithrix's. For example, his primary skill is the hammer slam, his secondary is the swipe, and his utility is the mini dashes he uses to cleanse non-damaging debuffs. In particular, we are looking at Mithrix's special, Shockwave. Upon using this skill, Mithrix will crouch down and gain the armor boost buff for 1 second. Then he will jump out of the arena for 3 seconds and land back in the arena's center, spawning the shockwaves that emanate outwards. In normal gameplay, this jump has a 30-second cooldown, but on Eclipse 7 and above it has a 15-second cooldown. And, as you probably know, Mithrix will only use this skill when he has less than 75% of his health remaining. Knowing when Mithrix is about to jump to the center is important for all the techs in this video. Having played over 1600 hours of Eclipse 8 myself, I can tell you that with enough practice, although it needn't be 1600 hours worth, you'll get a rhythm or a sense for when Mithrix is about to jump. If you don't have that rhythm yet, here's a couple tips. Mithrix will always attempt to use his jump as soon as the skill is off cooldown. However, he will usually be in the middle of a different attack animation, meaning he must first finish this previous animation before he can use his jump. In fight, these are the moments when Mithrix will stand still and no longer perform any skills, gradually standing upright and returning to its default position. This is your signal that Mithrix is about to use his jump. Even if you can perfectly predict Mithrix's jump timings, it can still be difficult to pull off a freeze or a stall. Sometimes Mithrix will dash away at the last second and immediately begin his jump animation. So don't worry about missing a freeze or a stall in these instances. There will be plenty of other moments where it's much easier to pull these techs off. The first category of techs I'll cover are the freezes, the methods you're most likely to already know. Artificer's Ice Spear and Ice Wall, Railgunner's Cryo Charge, and Chef's new secondary, Icebox, can all stop Mithrix from jumping back to the center. To perform a freeze, make sure you have the required skill off cooldown around the time when Mithrix is about to jump back. Then, when you see him crouch with the armor buff above his head, quickly hit Mithrix with your freezing skill. If timed correctly, Mithrix will be frozen, with the armor buff disappearing quickly afterwards. Then, once unfrozen, he will return to attacking you for another 30 seconds, giving you plenty of time for your freeze skill to come off cooldown for his next attempted jump. Railgunner's Cryo Charge takes a few seconds to boot up, so in order to time the freeze correctly, you'll need to activate it a few seconds prior to Mithrix's jump. The animation does scale with attack speed, so you can pick up some attack speed items to make this freeze easier. Artificer's freezes are pretty straightforward, simply either use your Ice Spear or your Ice Wall at the correct time. Finally, to freeze Mithrix with Chef, you'll need to have Icebox selected, but you can freeze Mithrix in, I'm dead serious, 5 different ways. I'll demonstrate all methods, but not all are equally practical, and you really only need to know 1 or 2 of these. So why do these freezes work? Arguably, they shouldn't. Every other boss enemy in the game is immune to being frozen, but for whatever reason, the developers decided to make Mithrix the sole exception. Regarding the freezes themselves, when Mithrix crouches down, he has already used his skill, meaning it is on a 15 or 30 second cooldown. By freezing him, you prevent Mithrix's jump animation from completing, meaning the skill must come off cooldown before he can use it again. One of the biggest benefits of this tech is it allows you to prevent Mithrix's pizza attack in phase 3, as Mithrix will only use this attack after performing a successful jump. But, in general, cancelling Mithrix's jump allows you to keep dealing continuous damage instead of having to wait for his jump to complete, making a safer and faster fight. On the topic of safety, a word of caution. Be careful around frozen Mithrix. If you're within his melee range, he will immediately swipe at you as soon as he exits his frozen state, so if you're not prepared, you'll likely take damage. The easiest way to prevent this is by giving him some space while frozen. Technically, there's one other way you could freeze Mithrix with any character, although the setup is, well, here's what you'd have to do. First, find her Biting Embrace, the elite equipment aspect that has a 1 in 4,000 chance to drop from glacial elites. Second, give this relic to an equipment drone. Third, get this drone to survive all the way to the Mithrix fight. Fourth, get the drone to die sufficiently close to Mithrix between 2 and 3 seconds before he jumps. Then, well, see for yourself. Hey, Big D from the future here. So, you know how I just spent like 30 minutes doing all this? And I definitely didn't have to like cheat and use commands to get the drone to die either. It just did that on its own, trust me. Well, turns out there's gonna be a new freeze drone in the next DLC. So, that was entirely pointless. The second group of techs are what you might call airborne stalls or just stalls. As I've mentioned, once Mithrix's jump is off cooldown, he will finish his current attack's animation and then attempt to use his jump. However, if Mithrix is not on the ground, then he will be unable to use this skill. Therefore, if you have some means of keeping Mithrix off the ground, then instead of using this skill when he normally would, he will perform some other skill instead, thus stalling his jump for a few seconds. However, unlike the freeze methods, Mithrix will still have his jump off cooldown, so he will continue to attempt to use the jump until it eventually succeeds. Also note that, unlike the freeze methods, you'll need Mithrix to be airborne before he tries to use his jump. If the yellow shield appears above his head, then you're too late. But good practice will make perfect, or at least more consistent. These type of air stall techs are mostly useful for speedruns or gauntlet runs, where the goal is to do as much damage as quickly as possible. By using this stall, you increase the time you're able to damage Mithrix and give you an opportunity to take advantage of damage sources that you might not be able to otherwise, like focus crystals or bandit's hemorrhage. There's likely times this tech can be useful in full loot runs, but it's a little risky since it can be hard to predict Mithrix's movements and attacks while he's in this stalled state. So if you want to be consistent with this tech, it'll take some trial and error before you fully figure it out. Even if you're not trying to intentionally stall Mithrix, knowing how he will behave while stalled is important, so you're never caught by surprise. Finally, here are the stalling techs, in what I'd consider to be the most least practical order. And there you have it. These are, as far as I'm aware, all of the freezing and stalling techs in Risk of Rain 2, at least at the time of this upload. There may be more I'm unaware of or that are added in the future, but I hope that, equipped with the knowledge of how these techs work, you can identify and implement more of these techs. All it comes down to is making simple observations of little quirks in the game, followed by figuring out how to exploit these quirks. And now that you know almost everything there is to know about freezing and stalling Mithrix, you're in the perfect position to further explore these techs on your own, or even find new tech altogether. Also, as you incorporate these techs into your runs, you'll find useful synergies between many of them, and with enough practice, Mithrix will be completely helpless as you dispatch his entire ability to move. If you want to practice these techs outside of normal runs, I recommend the Debug Toolkit mod, and these commands will likely help. If you have questions about any of the information in this guide, leave a comment and I'll do my best to respond, at least for a few months after this guide is posted. Finally, I'll give myself a few seconds of self-promotion. I stream live at twitch.tv/bigdwigdy, so come on over and enjoy some Risk of Rain 2. At least if you got the time. That's all from me, and thank you for watching. Take care everyone.